Ooh, common mistake. So there's some big ones. I think not starting with the end in mind, just like we touched upon, is a very common mistake. People forget why they're in it. They forget to celebrate the wins along the way. I know
Mm.
for myself, there's always failures, some small failures and some epic failures along all of our.
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I'm your host, Angela Duncan. We talk all things money and business. Today's episode, I get to interview Kasey D'Amato. She is an incredible executive coach helping business owners. And today's episode, she's going to talk about some common mistakes that you are making. We're going to talk about solopreneur and building out a team. Check out her website, KaseyD'Amato.com. Kasey, the letter D, Amato.com. She's got some incredible resources there for you and a few freebies that we're going to talk about during the show. Are you a business owner and sometimes you are feeling alone or isolated when making your own business decisions? Well, I want you to meet Kasey D'Amato. She is a business advisor and executive coach, and she is helping to change the lives of business owners every single day. She is helping you to focus your time and energy on what's most important to you, making more money, having financial freedom, having more time to do the things that you love, and having fun along the entrepreneur journey. Check out Kasey, the letter D, Amato.com, KaseyD'Amato.com, and she's got a couple of freebies for you, one of which is a business growth cheat sheet, which is going to teach you how to scale your business. Definitely check out KaseyD'Amato.com and hire her as your next and final business coach. Hi, Kasey. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. We were just talking offline about the crazy wind that we're experiencing here in South Florida, but we'll get through the day, and hopefully, like you said, Wi-Fi is going to be amazing.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, Kasey, I would love for you to start with your story. I always like hearing the backstory behind the successful woman. So why don't we start with as far back as you'd like to go?
Oh my gosh, that's always the interesting question, right? How did everybody get started in business? I remember that the first day that I thought about starting my first business venture, and I was sitting in our home in Los Angeles. My husband and I lived in Los Angeles for 20 years, and I looked at my husband and I said, "Should we do it? Should we start a venture?" And at that time, I had been practicing as a dermatology PA for many years, and we decided to set out on a venture to start the first natural medical grade skincare. And this was my first big venture. I had dabbled in some consulting. I had a small consulting company at that time. I still have that company as one of my companies today. And we set out along this journey into the beauty industry with skincare, and it was a big venture, and it was very glamorous at times. We had lots of press and we had lots of celebrity shout outs and supporters, and it all looked beautiful from the outside. Like it was a perfect Instagram, filter before Instagram really existed, because this is back in 2010 we first started. And internally, I was struggling along the road. We had hit some big roadblocks in this venture. And, I struggled with significant anxiety and a bit of depression, and, struggled with relationships, both with my spouse and my family, extended family, friends, because, all of a sudden the business was all consuming, right? And the business at some points was not going well. Like we were burning a lot of cash. I know you're a money expert, right? So when we're in business and you start burning a lot of cash, we had years we were burning seven figures. And at that point in time, I found myself in the doctor's office, and, my doctor saying, "You are probably going to have a heart attack if you don't do something about your
Mm.
stress level and the way that being a business owner is affecting you." And that was really the wake up call for me, and really the point in time that I said something has to change. And I looked deep inside myself. I looked at my prior history, my prior trajectory. I started in sales, then I became a medical provider in dermatology. Then I had a consulting business, the skincare business, and I thought there's got to be a better way. And I started studying all of the personal development, self-development, business mindset, and started recognizing opportunities to improve myself and improve the way I operated with a team. And very soon after that, I realized that it was a matter of who I was working with and restructuring. And we then fast forward to created a partnership, expanded the skincare company globally, and eventually exited that company. And now it's really my passion to pay it forward because I come from a background of sales, of medicine, of managing a multi-million dollar medical practice, of starting a big venture in a very competitive industry and hitting some trials along the way. And it's really my passion and mission to pay it forward because these principles and tools that I learned, discovered, some I adapted, can apply to any industry, and it can take you out of those dark places and those dark times and bring you to the other side. And a lot of people don't realize that it doesn't have to be as hard as it seems. It's very lonely at times, and it's very hard when you're having those hard financial times. But with some simple tools, you can get out of that pretty quickly and turn things around, not just for the business, but also your personal life, your mindset, your health, your relationships. So now I'm all about paying it forward and helping people find that life of freedom as a business owner, entrepreneur, and freedom, what I think most business owners define as more money, more time, more fun.
Yeah. Oh, love that story. So I'm curious to know when you first started like the dermatology business and the line, right, that you were doing, did you ever think about your exit when you were starting it, or was it just something new for you and you were going to build forever? Talk about where your mindset was.
Yeah, that's an awesome question, and one that I keep very top of mind all the time. That business was always intended to have an exit. Now, we didn't exit at the time that we thought. The exit ended up happening because of COVID and some other issues. It was not the perfect timing by any means, but that venture always was something that I wanted to build and grow and be disruptive in an industry. There wasn't anything like what we were doing in the space. And I always did have a time frame that I said, this business is designed for a period of time. And that is what I'm dedicating my life. We put a lot of money, we had shareholders and investors, there was a lot going into it, but I knew there was a period of time, it was about 10 years, that I was going to put into this venture. And I was going to get it as far as I possibly could, come hell or high water, to get it to that point. But then I was probably going to transition to something else. Now, other businesses I have, and I still have to this day, they're legacy businesses. They're going to stay with me for a long time. They're not necessarily designed for an exit. That's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people don't always start with the end in mind with
Mhm.
business. And I believe that it's very important to be intentional about your business. And are you going to pivot it, adapt it, innovate it, or exit it? And at what stage and what point will trigger those decisions for you?
Yeah. So today you've got multiple businesses. How do you kind of juggle that, handle that, continue to learn about each industry? Talk about what that looks like for you.
Yeah, that's a great question too. So right today I have two coaching and consulting businesses, and I have a handful of real estate investments that all operate as their own independent businesses as well. So sort of what I classify, active income, with businesses that I put a lot of time and energy into. And then the more passive, some of the real estate are more passive. Not all real estate is passive, so I should call that out as well. But some of the things that we do, which are more long-term rentals and things like that. They're not flips and where you have to put a lot of energy into remodels and things like that. We've done that. But I always believe that you want to have your energy diversified between your active income source, where you're putting your time and energy and you can measure the ROI from that effort. So, time, energy, money going into something, if you're investing in that business and you can see your ROI coming out, and then you diversify into other longer term investments, whether that's real estate, whether that's index funds, whether that's crypto, whatever it might be. Pick your poison, have a long term investment. So, today I have two coaching and consulting businesses. One of them is pretty much operated by my team. That's a business I've had for a long time, and my team does almost everything. I advise and consult, but it's just a few hours a month. My personal brand, where I advise entrepreneurs as an executive coach and handhold people that are starting out and growing from six figures and seven figures and beyond and help them get to that level. And then the real estate. So multiple entities, each one of them takes a very intentional amount of my time and energy because of what I'm passionate about and my belief and mission to pay it forward, and also my belief in diversifying your time and energy, and also what your outcome is going to be on the other side of that.
Yeah, I like that because a lot of people, they say, oh, if you have a 401k, you need to diversify, which just means different mutual funds. But you're taking this as like a whole life example and you're diversifying where your income is coming from, both short term and passively with different means of, having that in your life. So I like that analogy too. That's a great way to put it. Being that you do coach, I think I'm a big believer in coaches. I've always had coaches. I think I'll always have coaches. What do you feel like you see as some of the common mistakes that business owners are making that you help them through?
Ooh, common mistake. So there's some big ones. I think not starting with the end in mind, just like we touched upon, is a very common mistake. People forget why they're in it. They forget to celebrate the wins along the way. I know
Mm,
for myself, there's always failures, some small failures and some epic failures along all of our journeys. I've had them in business, I've had them in real estate. I've had small failures and I've had epic failures. But over the long term, I've come out ahead, right? Fast forward to where I am now, I'm 47 years old, and the business cumulatively and all of the different business ventures, and same with the real estate, far outweigh the failures. And so I think a common mistake that people make is they don't celebrate the wins, the micro wins and the bigger wins for long enough. And whether that is something that they do to reward themselves or something that they're changing about their lifestyle, it's something they're stepping into the new version of themselves, and they're recognizing who they are becoming along this journey, because it's all about the ride, and the ride of the journey has to be fun and enjoyable, which means you have to recognize the wins. So, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they get hung up in the failures, in the micro failures, some of the bigger failures, and it holds them back for too long. I know that was a mistake of mine for sure. And, without the right tools to overcome that, they get stuck there, and it messes with your head. But
mm.
all of us, everybody, the most successful business owners, all the way down to startups, we're all going through a series of micro failures. And it's important to focus on the wins and not about those. Those failures are just learning points. They're not real failures, anyways. It's an illusion of failure. It's just a learning point. As long as you learn and grow and do better, now it's now a win. It's not a failure. And so I think that mindset is one of the biggest mistakes that I see, especially early stage entrepreneurs. When I say early stage, I say anybody under $1 million in gross revenue, tend to get really hung up in those when things are not going well, which is all the time. They get hung up on that they're maybe not good enough, or they get the imposter syndrome. How will they figure this out? They get overwhelmed, and it's just a matter of one step in front of the other. Keep going and surround yourself with the right team of who's, which I talk about a lot, which is a right support team beneath you, right collaborators growing alongside of you, and the right coaches and mentors guiding you, and a team at each level. And that'll get you through everything.
Yeah, and I'm sure as a coach, it's fun, and you're probably the reminder when they do have the wins, like, to celebrate it with your client, like, that must be an amazing feeling too.
Yes, yes. Always celebrate the wins. Celebrate the wins. I mean, they can sneak by you if you're not paying attention. And so to stop and celebrate them is so important. Yes. And then one of my favorite parts about what I do now is celebrating the wins and drawing it to my clients' attention, and being very mindful about those moments in time.
Yeah, and they could be small things like, "I made payroll this month," or, "Hey, I actually
Yes.
have a profit this month," it's like not
Yes.
everything needs to be huge.
Yes, yes, it could be, yeah, exactly. Payroll, profit. It could be a stat on social media, some kind of reel, on Instagram went a little bit viral, or it could be, that they got a opportunity to speak. It doesn't have to be a massive revenue goal. It's all these micro goals that are building blocks. And maybe it's the first full-time team hire, it's just even that's a big moment in time to celebrate, because if you're bringing on your first team member, maybe it's your first freelance team, maybe it's not even full-time, but that is your building block to success and freedom. Because solopreneuring is a recipe and one-way track to burnout. I talk about that a lot. So every layer of team is a winning point, a point to celebrate, because that's one step closer to being a real business owner and building your empire and building this life of freedom. And so those are all micro wins that are just important to stop and celebrate.
Yeah, love that. Now, as a business owner, I think I've seen, especially the newer business owners and entrepreneurs, they have an idea, they think it's amazing, and it just doesn't seem to create the revenue that they want. And how do they determine when they need to pivot or change their business?
Yeah. So pivoting is something that a lot of people struggle with because is it time to make a change in your business? Is it time to exit the business altogether? Is it, are you going to burn it all down and start over? And so those are challenging questions. I'm actually making a video series about this right now. So one question is, are you passionate about what you're doing and do you know there's market demand for it? Because if you love what you're doing and you know you're solving a problem that people need, keep going. There is just something small in your messaging. There's just some small tweak, but you will break through. If you're passionate about it and there's a need for it, you will break through. It might be messaging, it might be your price point. There's something small that just needs to be adapted, but you will break through. If you are losing your passion overall for the entire industry that you're in, if you no longer want to be in that space anymore and you want to step away, that's a different story. Or if there's really not a market demand, if you have a product or service, but it's not solving a problem that people say that they have, that they are aware that they have. They wake up in the morning and they say, I have this problem. Gosh, I wish I had someone that could help me with this problem. If you're not solving that problem and you're not passionate, then it's probably time to make a pivot. One thing most people don't realize is that every business needs to innovate every 3 to 5 years. So something has to be different about your business every 3 to 5 years,
Hmm.
whether it's a new service, whether it's a new product, whether you're expanding team, whether you're operating different. You must innovate every 3 to 5 years. If you look at big companies, they oftentimes do this. There will be something different about the way they're operating. And smaller businesses sometimes neglect this. They don't realize that you will need to change for your own mindset, but also to keep up with the market demands, to stay relevant, to stay one step ahead of the competition. You always will need to do something a little different every 3 to 5 years. So if you're feeling the need, like, ooh, I wonder if I should change or do something different, if you've been doing the same for 3 to 5 years and the revenue's been the same ish, maybe you're growing a little bit, but not leaps and bounds, it probably is time to change as long as you're passionate and you're solving a problem. If you're not passionate, you're not necessarily solving the problem, and you're plateauing or declining, it might be time for a serious pivot or maybe even an exit
Hmm.
and a redo.
Yeah, and that was me last year. I had a property and casualty insurance company, and I just wasn't passionate about it. Like, I want to help people with money, but it teaching people about their property insurance in Florida is was just so time consuming and like exhausting because people just they don't want to know what's in their insurance policy. They
Yes.
just want to know what am I paying. I'm like, but it's important for you to understand the coverages, like what you
Yes.
actually need. So I understand that not being passionate, I definitely pivoted and ended up exiting that company. So that's a great point too. And for those that might be watching you on video right now, I can tell that you're very passionate about what you're talking about, but I'd like to know your why behind it and how important is it for a business owner to know what their why is?
It's very important to know their why. My passion is to pay it forward. I want to pay forward to the next generation of people who are starting out with business to help them avoid making some of the mistakes that I made, to help it be easier process, not so scary, not feel so alone. I don't have kids of my own, so it's my legacy and mission to pay it forward to the next generation of entrepreneurs and business owners, particularly women, because I think women tend to feel spread very thin when they're starting their business. And oftentimes women will really get stuck in that solopreneur trap. And so I very much want to empower early stage entrepreneurs and business owners, especially women, but men too, so that you can get to that next level. It isn't as scary as you think, and you're not alone. And again, it's the struggles that I went through along my journey, I feel would be wasted if I didn't now share the tools that I use to come out of those times. And so, again, I'm very passionate about this being my legacy, my personal brand, and my business advisement and executive coaching is very intimate. I work with a small group of people, but it's truly my legacy. If I can impact those people's lives to find that true life of freedom, more money, more time, more fun, then I have I have fulfilled my own journey here on planet Earth and what I've meant to do, which is to help and serve other people and leave that legacy behind.
How does someone go about finding their why? Uh, Entrepreneurs, we get started for a reason. And I don't think it's always the reason of our why. And that's probably something that maybe people get stuck on because their business isn't moving forward because they haven't figured out what that why is. How would
Yeah.
you recommend someone to kind of focus and maybe go internally, or what tips would you have?
I honestly recommend the old-fashioned visualization tactic, which is, what is your perfect life? Fast forward 5 years in the future, wave that magic wand. If you and I could wave the magic wand over everybody listening and say, we will grant your wish. What is that wish? And be specific about it. Most people are going to business for some level of freedom. Most people are starting their business for what they define as freedom. They don't want to work for somebody else. So, what does that freedom mean to them? What are they doing? How are they spending their days? With who? Where? If it's financial freedom, how much money is in the bank? How much money is coming in from active or passive? Who's around them? What impact are they making? And how are they contributing to the greater good? Because the money in the bank is not the answer. So people think that it is, but it's not. One of my favorite quotes is, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And it's not my
Mhm.
quote. I think it's from Tony Robbins, I believe. And it's one of my favorites because it's not about the money. It's about what it represents to you. What does business success and freedom represent to you? And so I think finding your why is about defining success and defining your perfect life and who's there and how are you then contributing to the greater good, because that's what will bring you the fulfillment and why I do what I do. And so if you start thinking about it that way, okay, I want to live this certain lifestyle. My husband and I moved from Los Angeles to now we have a home in South Florida and a beach house in Maine. That was part of our perfect life definition, right? Part of my perfect life definition was, how do I pay forward? How do I help others and future generations, whether that's families, nieces and nephews, things like that, with their business ideas, or people in the community, and people that I meet along the way. How do I help people reach their goals by applying the tools that I've learned? And that is my why. So if you can visualize who's there, where are you, and how are you contributing, that will give you your answer to your why.
Yeah. So what's in the future for you? If you're a planner and envisioning for your entrepreneur multiple business platform, what's in the future for your businesses?
Oh my gosh, yes, lots of good stuff. Well, I'm always growing and expanding, right? That's always on my radar, is growth, because if we're not growing as humans and as business owners, if our business isn't growing and we're not growing, then we're dying essentially. So growth is an important part of the human experience. So for sure, growing my business, I think I'll be expanding a bit more to more group programs. I'm actually going to be publishing a book and doing a lot more speaking. So my goal is to impact more people. I want to, impact 10 million people over the next 10 years to help them find that life of freedom and help business owners and entrepreneurs. That's what I am all about. And what my vision is. I probably will tinker with some real estate along the way, because real estate is my second passion. But again, real estate that is truly passive, in not taking a lot of time, because that's a whole different path. It's a whole different
Yeah.
path.
Yeah, understand. Speaking of like the entrepreneur and how much information and tips you're giving in the podcast, I believe you have a freebie for us as well.
I do. Yes, I have a very simple tool. It's my business growth cheat sheet that helps people assess their areas of opportunities in their sales and marketing. And it walks through a funnel, not an email funnel. This is your overall business funnel of how you're getting awareness and the conversions and the acquisition and retention. And it helps you recognize opportunities that you could improve upon your business. It's very easy to apply. It's very easy to recognize the opportunities right away. And it's a tool that I use with all of my clients. I use in my own business always to recognize, okay, what step here can I improve so that my business is healthier for the long term? It's positioned to scale, not get stuck in solopreneur, and take it to the next level. So the business growth cheat sheet is what I recommend. Even established businesses can benefit this. I've had clients that are high 7 figures and 8 figures, been in business for quite some time, use this tool and they're like, oh my gosh, I automatically can see an area of opportunity where we can improve and step up the game. So the business growth cheat sheet, I think, is a fantastic tool for anybody in business. It's just good to reset, check in with it once a quarter and reassess how things are going with your sales and marketing.
And how do we get this tool?
Yeah, you can get it from my website, kaseydamato.com. You can always DM me on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. I think you have the link as well. So hopefully we'll get it in the show notes and if people can download it, it's totally free.
Yay, awesome. One final fun question for you. If you could pick a superpower or super talent, what would it be and why?
Ooh, a superpower or super talent. I think it might be the invisible cloak because I really like learning from other people. There's sometimes I see very successful people and I always wonder if I was a fly on the wall listening into a board meeting on what was going on or could see behind the scenes into the lifestyle. Is it really what it looks like on Instagram, right? So I believe that success leaves clues. So if you study other people and then you apply to your life, then the answers become a lot clearer, but you can't always believe what you see right online and what people are putting out in the public persona. So the invisible cloak, I think, would give me an extreme advantage to study successful people even deeper than I have done so far to learn more of those clues to be able to adapt and accelerate even faster.
That's a great answer, Kasey. All right, one more time. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, best ways to find you.
Instagram is the best at Kasey D'Amato. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find me on all three. And website is kaseydamato.com. And I answer my own DM, so feel free to reach out anytime.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into Empower Her Money podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast, and leave a review wherever you are tuning in.